Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Samurai Brothers. This is episode 74 of our podcast. And Matthew, we've got a lot of wrestling stuff to talk about today, including up to day 8 of the Sumo Harubasho. So we'll get right into stuff here. So a lot of national championships that were contested over this weekend. There were 3 national tournaments that ended yesterday. And so the champions of those respective divisions have been determined. Obviously, we talked about last few episodes about the CIF High School State Championships, the NAIA Men's National Wrestling Championship. So today we'll start off with the NAIA Women's Wrestling National Championships. And this is apparently, according to the information I'm seeing on the NAIA website, this is the 4th official national championship. Now, I think based on what research you had done before, I think normally they were doing the WCWA or something like that, right?
Yeah, that started when I was at MOBAP and we started the team. The WCWA was basically a combined. It was it was women's wrestling across the board. It was for
Right.
both the NCAA and NAIA schools. It was across the board. Then there came a point where and teams who did that were also welcome to do the women's championship for the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
Then the NAIA started doing their own women's championship before the
Right.
NCAA. So what happened was that what was it, the NWWCA tournament or whatever it was that's been going on the past years, that basically became exclusive to uh the what's
The
it called?
NCAA.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the WCWA has ceased to exist. It wouldn't really serve a purpose anymore because
Right.
there's
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
so there,
really.
yeah, because yeah, there's the NAIA and there's the NCAA tournament.
Yep. Obviously, last time we talked about the NCAA Women's Championships were won by McKendree University, who happened to just squeeze by Iowa. So that was the inaugural NCAA Women's Championship. So we got the NAIAs, and this is the 4th official NAIA Women's Championships. And overall, Life University from Georgia was able to claim their 2nd straight NAIA title. And they also had one individual champion in Jamila McBride of Life. And I know that she's from there's like the McBride sisters that I'm aware of. They've been pretty good as far as what I've heard. So there's that. The runner up to the NAIA women's was, let me see here, William Penn from Iowa. And they actually had 3 national champions. So that must mean overall, I would think that that means Life did honestly a lot better than them. And then the 3rd place team was I think there was a crash outside or something. But 3rd place team was Grandview from Iowa, who might have had the chance to do what the men's team did, because obviously the men's team won. But I don't know that we've seen both men and women claim at the same time. But I'll have to go back and double check on that later on. Anyway, so and Grandview had one champion. And then 4th place, Providence from Montana, also had a champion. So overall, obviously we've got a number of these teams vying for trying to take the title, but in this case, NAIA's, it was Life. And I know that the Life men's team also won the national championship a few years back. So obviously, that team is pretty good. And I would say, Matthew, they're probably when it comes to the NAIs, obviously the dominant powerhouse is in the men's is Grandview, since they've won, I think, 14 national championships now. And obviously based on, that they really don't have a lot of other programs, I don't see them moving up to the NCAAs anytime soon.
Yeah, because if you look at their sports across the board, it's one of those situations where uh basically wrestling is they've won national championships in other sport, but as it stands right now, wrestling is their best sport.
Yeah.
So it's basically they're good at wrestling, everything else not as good. And maybe eventually it might be one of those things where they'll move. They might move eventually, but
Yeah.
well, and then you have to remember that you have to meet a certain amount of criteria. It's possible they aren't meeting that criteria, thus are maybe not interested at this point. So
Honestly, though, with what we've seen in this last season, I don't know why people would want to go to the NCAA when um, you know, programs could be cut, because we've seen way too many of those where NAIA schools go to the NCAA and then the wrestling programs end up getting cut. So anyway, but yeah, so I think and then obviously Life, I think, is out there too. So be interesting to see how the next few years, what are we going to have going forward with who will be the dominant powerhouse in the women's side. So with that being said, let's move into D3 wrestling. And this obviously is not a surprise, but so Wartburg College claims the national title. Obviously sharing the one of the two dominant powerhouse schools in D3 wrestling, Wartburg and Augsburg. Um, so that is obviously no surprise that they would come out and win again. However, Augsburg did not claim the runner up, and that instead went to Wisconsin lacrosse. And actually, this race wasn't even close because Wartburg won with 110 team points, and Wisconsin lacrosse in second place only had 68 team points. So obviously, big, and this is actually the first time since 2022 that when, because obviously it's either been Wartburg or Augsburg, aside from last year where there was a national championship tie between Wartburg and Johnson and Wales. So, and that meant that was the first time that a team other than those two schools was able to lay claim to the national title since Ithaca in 1994. So, but pretty much up until it had always been either Augsburg or Wartburg. Uh, you know, in the top two spots. You might have an anomaly here and there, but it's always been one of those schools at least claiming the national title one way or another since 1994. But with Wisconsin lacrosse taking second, this is the first time that a school other than those two schools has gotten into the second place finish since Wabash did it in 2022. And with that being said, Wartburg officially takes the lead on the number of national titles because last year when they won, they tied Augsburg for 15 apiece, but now Wartburg leads with 16 to Augsburg's 15. Matthew, do you think any other schools are going to at some point break this streak? I mean, Johnson and Wales did get a claim to it, but not outright. It was a tie. That means that the streak still continues for these two schools.
Yeah, at some point streaks are meant to end. So at some point that streak is going to end, and that second place finish could be a sign.
Mhm.
The fact that there's been that, you mentioned that one school in 2022, and then you had Johnson and Lee, um, uh, come very close. It is possible that relatively soon, probably within the next few years, we will see someone break the streak of those two.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Obviously, uh, it somehow they get a lot of people to go. They get the good people to go to those two schools, and I guess when
Basically, the leftovers of everyone else, because let's be honest, because D3 does not hand out scholarships, whereas NAIA does. Basically, everyone after D1, D2, and NAIA goes to those schools.
yeah,
That's
and
that's
and actually these two schools, because they're actually kind of in a concentrated area, because Augsburg is in Minnesota and Wartburg is in Iowa. So you're right. People who might not be able to make it at the higher levels, especially since, Iowa and Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota, obviously is not top of the line like New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Iowa, but still it's got Minnesota University with the Golden Gophers. So I'm not going to rate them as a mid-tier state either. So definitely, you know,
Minnesota schools have won national championships in the past. It's been a while, but they have. So
yeah,
you can't really count a school like that out.
right, exactly. So with that being said, interesting to see. And again, I'm hoping to get our chart up sometime soon to kind of see all the statistics and stuff like that
I'm
too.
I'm
So
thinking of I'm thinking of the Weird Al song. There's this the biggest ball twine in Minnesota.
yep, exactly. So moving on to the D2 championships here. Now I'll have to look up the brackets and stuff because they don't for some reason have the second place score of for who won, but so I have to guess this was a close tournament. So Nebraska Kearney
Only
wins their
seven
second.
only 7 points separated the top four teams. That
Okay,
that
yes,
should go to tell you.
yeah. So it was a very close tournament. Nebraska Kearney gets their second consecutive title, and I believe this is their sixth overall based on um, what I've looked at. So sixth overall. Closing in on the record, I think it was either Nebraska, Omaha, and I know there's been Central Oklahoma, Cal State Bakersfield when they had, when they were in D2. Cal Poly has 8 from when they were in D2, which includes a 7-year, which includes 7 consecutive national titles back in the 60s and 70s. So with that being said, and apparently I was looking at because I did see this on social media. This was actually posted by the runner-ups, Wisconsin Parkside, their first time ever getting on the podium like that as a team.
I was gonna say I just went on the Flow Wrestling and I see the complete results. If you want me
Sure.
to um to what place do you want me to go?
Just go down to 5th place. That'll be good.
Okay, so Nebraska Kearney had 83 total points, one champion, two runner-ups, one fifth place, one and two sixth place for their All-Americans. Wisconsin Parkside, 78 points, one champion, one third, one fourth, two fifths. McKendree, 70 76.5 points, two champions, two fourth place, one seventh place. Central Oklahoma, 76 points, one champion, one runner up, one third, one fourth. And then Lander, 64.5 points, one champion, one runner up, one fifth, one sixth, one seventh.
Okay. So yes, actually Lander, they took second back in 2023 and 2024. We know that. So yeah, that's interesting how that went down. So yeah, Nebraska Kearney on top again for the second so a consecutive title. And funny thing is the previous champions to win consecutive titles was Central Oklahoma in 2023 and 2024. So not
Of of note, former NAIA schools, St. Cloud State and no, wait a minute. Grand Valley State was an NCAA school, but they both placed in the top 12.
okay. Well, that's interesting.
Well,
Okay. Well,
McKendree's also a former NAIA school, so
yes, yes,
well,
I
it's
do know
it's
that.
like it's like I've compared when I was in the NAIA. They're essentially you could have compared the top tier of the NAIA to it's always been Division 2.5, but it was very close to being basically almost parallel to Division 2
Mm-hmm.
because you had all those top schools. You had McKendree, you had Lindenwood, you had the other Notre Dame. Um you had a bunch of these top level schools that were winning national championships on a regular basis, and then they went to D2 and and then Cal Baptist as well. So they went to D2 and won a bunch of national championships, and as you can see, McKendree's still doing very well.
Yep.
So regardless of whether things went to D1, and unfortunately we've seen basically they're like, okay, we're well, I don't think Lindenwood was an intentional like we're done with you, bye bye, but but Cal Baptist is kind of one of those things where it's like you could kind of
Uh,
tell.
what's their names too? Grand Canyon
Oh
when
yeah,
they went to
Grand
D1,
Canyon.
and then also Nebraska Omaha.
Though I read that Grand Canyon actually did what's it called? I read Grand Canyon actually re- restarted a club team. I
Yes,
don't
they
know
do.
if
They
that
have a club team.
I don't know if that means that they're gonna eventually restart the program or not, but
Good question.
Maryville was another one of those that
Actually, there are a few of these former there are a few of these former schools that do have clubs right now. Like good examples, UCLA and USC. They've got clubs right now, but obviously nothing that would really drive them to, you know, come back up to the competitive D1 level. Although that would be really nice because then, the it kind of is one step forward to removing the taint of, Big Ten wrestling in that, you know, what used to be that all the schools had wrestling now has been, you know, there are four schools that join the conference that don't have wrestling.
and all well, except for SC, I think all of them used to have not just used to have wrestling, but used to have top wrestling programs. Oregon had a national champion like a year or two before
Well,
they
and
cut
you
their
know what,
program.
Washington would be famous for in terms of wrestling?
Um.
Larry Owings.
Oh right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Anyway, the
And
D,
according to Dad, UCLA had a national champion a year or
yeah,
two before they cut their program. So we're not talking about. I mean, it's been a while, but we're not talking about programs that historically didn't have legacies behind them. So,
right. Uh,
like
um,
how when they were started Fresno State, they had three-time champion and Olympic silver medalist Stephen Abbas. So,
yep. Well, but apparently though, Fresno State does have a club again. So, because I've seen them on social media that they do have a club. But
well,
anyway,
it's the thing you do is you don't just start a men's team, you start a women's team.
yeah.
So, which insulates it from what's it called? Which insulates it from Title IX.
Maybe if somehow some of these teams can start back up, maybe they won't like be so eager to just go out and join the Big 12. Maybe at least try to get into the Pac 4 or whatever it is now.
It's bad. It's I think starting this next season it is going to be the Pac. It is well
Going to be the
historically it's the Pac-12, similar to how a bunch of these other schools. But at this point you when you're starting out, if you're going to start out, you might as well start out in the conference that your main school is in.
I, I do think one of the things that led them to consider cutting Cal Baptist, obviously the athletic director with his recent conduct lately, he's no fan of wrestling, but I do think that finances did have something to do with it because the fact that it's like you're in the Big 12 means that you do have to travel out of state in that, and so traveling out of state, meaning like you have to book flights and stuff, that does cost a bit of money. So, um, well, we should move on. Just really quick, D1 wrestling will be happening this coming weekend,
And I
from
need to figure
March.
out where to watch the finals because the finals this year are not going to be on ESPN Plus.
Hmm. Yes, they will be March 19th through March 21st. And so that'll be we'll have to see. So I guess Matthew, the big question is who's going to take second and third?
Yeah, because
Uh,
things aren't so solid.
yeah.
Well, let's
Unless
have our chickens before they're hatched because anything can happen.
yeah,
Historically, anything can happen
yeah,
the
unless
NCAA
yeah,
championships.
somehow Penn State takes a big dump, but we'll see about that.
Which
Anyway,
no, yeah, which normally doesn't happen because Kale's guys are usually consistent, but you never know.
yep.
Especially with Kale's former number two, David Taylor, coaching Oklahoma State.
So we'll move right into sumo. We have finished day 8.
This has been quite a tournament.
It is. It is definitely one that we don't know who is going to win. And we can't. I don't know if we can even make
I mean, we could
accurate.
make some predictions based off of who's yeah, we could make some predictions based off of who's currently ahead, but yeah, we can't really make any solid predictions per se,
Yes.
especially considering that the normal headliners kind of aren't in play.
Well, so we'll go right into it really quickly, just so that we don't run amok of the time. So day 2, because last we talked about day 1. So day 2, we had a couple of withdrawals from the tournament, and then of note, Kotozakura and Hoshori won their matches, but on day 2, Aonishiki lost to Yoshinofuji, who he actually does have trouble against. He has a losing record against. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily a surprise that Aonishiki would lose that match. And then Atami Fuji, the Shin Komusubi, pulls off an upset of Yokozuna Onosato for the Yokozuna to go 0-2 for the Basho.
Kimboshi for him this time, though.
Yeah. And then so day 3, we see that another withdrawal. Abi injured his back. So he
Kind of
drops
already
out.
had an injured back.
Yeah, he apparently, it was pre-tournament.
Well,
I
and
guess.
let's also be specific. So day 2, Onokatsu and Hokuno Fuji both withdrew. Hokuno Fuji, of course, being on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, that toe injury.
Not just that, he was on the receiving end of that reported
Oh,
incident with
yeah,
Gama.
yeah. You're right. That was that little incident that happened there. So then, so Abi withdraws, and then we go into the Sanyaku. So the Sanyaku, Takayasu beats Wakamoto Haru, so he's 3-0. Kirishima beats Atami Fuji. Kotozakura wins. Aonishiki gets back up on his feet to win. And then Fujinokawa, the small guy, manages to defeat Onosato to score his first career Kimboshi and his first win of the Basho. So Onosato obviously hurting. That shoulder injury just not good. And then Hoshoryu manages to defeat Yoshino Fuji to go 3-0. So everyone besides Onosato won as far as the top 4 were concerned.
Showed you also having issues with Yoshino Fuji in the past.
Yeah. So then we go into day 4, and to no one's surprise, Onosato withdraws from the tournament, and so it is going to be the first time in his career that he will not have had a kachikoshi. Unfortunately, and we'll get into talking about what he really should be doing after we conclude just the day through to the day 8 highlights. So as far as the Sanyaku goes, Atami Fuji wins again. He beats his fellow Komusubi Wakamoto Haru. Kirishima wins against Wakataka Kage. Aonishiki drops another match to Maegashira Chura no Umi. Takayasu defeats Kotozakura, and this is obviously a very heavy rivalry, with Takayasu also having the winning record, although not by much. So it can really go back and forth as to who, of those two might win. It's kind of one of those things of you never know sort of thing, right?
Yeah, because it's really close.
Yeah.
It's been a very long rivalry.
Yeah. But then Fujinokawa again pulling off an upset, this time of Hoshoryu for his second Kimboshi. There's not a lot of people who are able to pull off a feat of defeating 2 Yokozuna over 2 days. So that's quite something there. So Hoshoryu drops to 3-1 at that point. So I'll speed up here. Just going into day 5. For Sanyaku, Atami Fuji loses. Takayasu goes to 5-0. Kirishima defeats Wakamoto Haru. Wakataka Kage upsets Kotozakura. Aonishiki defeats Fujinokawa, so no streak for Fujinokawa there to build a hot run. Hoshoryu recovers and defeats Chura no Umi. So that means that so that's where we're at day 5. Day 6. Now we're kind of starting to see where people are getting up in the tournament, but so let me see here. Wakamoto Haru loses to Fujinokawa. Kirishima manages to defeat Yoshino Fuji. This one I got correct on one of my sumo game picks, but Wakataka Kage defeated Takayasu. Based on the what was it? The record that Wakataka Kage has against Takayasu, it's kind of a 12-6. And sometimes it's like Takayasu is just known to drop some of these key matches, and
Yeah,
maybe it's just
that's why he's been always the runner up, never the winner, never the
yeah.
champion.
And Wakataka Kage, I mean, by the way that he really did have it in that case. Oho upsets Aonishiki, so there's some trouble going on there. Atami Fuji upsets Kotozakura. So things are starting to get chaotic. Hoshoryu defeats Hiradomi to maintain his pace in the leaderboard after day 6 with 7 Rikishi tied at 5-1. Day 7. So we'll go through this really quickly. Wakamoto Haru loses to Yoshino Fuji. Takayasu recovers, defeats Daisho. Kirishima defeats Hiradomi. Kotozakura recovers and defeats Fujinokawa. Aonishiki getting on a losing streak, losing to Atami Fuji. And Hoshoryu defeating Oho. So the leaderboard is one person did lose. That was Shodai. So the leaderboard now down to 6 people at 6-1 after day 7. And then to finish up day 8 before we go into our conversations, Sanyaku Wakamoto Haru gets his first win of the Basho, so he's now 1-7. Atami Fuji wins. He's 5-3. And then this was honestly this is my favorite match of the Basho so far. Kirishima defeats Takayasu in what was a battle of the leaders. It was also the battle of the Sekiwake. Kirishima defeating Takayasu by Sukuinage. Takanosho making waves, defeating Aonishiki. So Aonishiki is in danger of possibly not finishing at double digits for the first time in his Sekitori career. He's now 3-5. Hiradomi upsets Kotozakura. And then Daisho upsets Hoshoryu. So Hoshoryu drops 6-2. But honestly, I think this was also Hoshoryu's fault. I think he got a little bit ambitious. And so, Matthew, let's start with that match first. The Hoshoryu losing to Daisho there.
Well, if you look at that match, Hoshoryu did have it in control right until the end when you notice his left foot slips on the Toara. And if he'd kept his footing, he would have probably won because he had Daisho's leg. So he was kind of doing like a modified double leg going in there, but then he lost his footing and then he fell first. So yeah, it was one of those things where as you put it, he probably got a little overly ambitious. He didn't watch his footing and he lost the match because of it.
Kotozakura, I don't have much to say other than Kotozakura is just being Kotozakura. Anything?
I do find it interesting that at this point, the way that both the Ozeki are going, forget the Basho, forget double digits, they both have to worry about not getting Karoban. Which
and I've been
I don't
reading.
like saying that because I'm a Aonishiki fan, but he's been consistent up until this point. He needs to be careful not to.
I have been reading. Apparently, Aonishiki did injure his foot. It seems foot or ankle, before the Basho started, which is why he hasn't been as mobile. It seems. So that would not be surprising if that's the case. I think right now, because right now the leaderboards at 7-1, Kirishima, Takanosho, Kotoshoho, and Gonoyama. And the Maegashira, Takanosho, Kotoshoho, and Gonoyama, they've all been kind of perennial runners for the Yusho race in the past. Koto Shoho has been successful in that sense because he's actually won the Yusho. But
Yeah, but if you
Takanosho,
look at that Basho, they didn't match him
yeah,
up against the as many Sanyaku as they should have been doing. They should
yeah,
have started matching him up way earlier.
yeah. I think honestly, this is Kirishima's Basho to lose. Because right now, he's riding off of 2 11 and 4s. He's in a prime position. And I think that I
And
haven't heard too
what a
much
way
talk.
to make a statement for getting re-promoted.
I think so. I think that, I think a 12 and 3 is going to do it. Um, Anything more than that, or even a 12 and 3 usual, I think will also do it to get him back up there. Because he's really trying to put it back together, and hopefully, he does good enough. Hoshodu may still be in the running, though. I think he still does have Takayasu. I don't think he's gone against Takanosho yet. I'm very sure that they're going to match him up against Takanosho at some point. In fact, actually, looking at day 9, that's who he's going against. And he has a 10-3 record against Takanosho. So we'll see, but you never know. Obviously, like you said, nothing is ever set in stone. And yes, Aonishiki and Kotozakura, they got to clean up their acts, get it together if they want to avoid Karobon. Because they've got each other, they've got Hoshoryu, and I think they still have to go against Kirishima and Takayasu, who are both kind of hot right now. So in fact, Takayasu will be going against Aonishiki. So, but I think the surprise out of all this is Atami Fuji, 5-3 in his Komusubi debut. Normally, Shin Komusubi they don't have such a great time, so he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, I think he finally figured out after being, elevator in the and the Maigashira ranks. He finally figured out how to actually properly utilize his weight because he's actually the heaviest
Yeah, in
Makunuchi
Makuuchi.
Rikishi right now
Yeah.
at 400 what pounds? How many
Yeah.
kilos is that? How many kilos?
He's at 180 right now.
That's so yeah, that's 400 something, right?
Yep. Well, we're running out of time. So Matthew, your prediction, Yusho, Jun Yusho. Got about 15 seconds.
Oh, that's a good question. I agree with you. I think this is Kirishima's Basho to lose. I'm gonna say Kirishima and Hoshoryu.
Same thing. I think Kirishima and Hoshoryu. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you as always for tuning in. And we'll be talking about on our next episode, we'll be talking about the results of the Basho. So until then, we want to thank you. And as always, take care.